Hey everyone. Before we jump into this episode of Cybersecurity Luminaries, History and Heroes, I wanted to provide you with this brief introduction. This episode is a little bit different than what we usually do in that it is a new hero, certainly making history. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I am always on the lookout for those of you who are making history. So let us know what you think of this episode as well as any of our other episodes, whether it be this series or our Cybersecurity Refined and Feral. We just love hearing from our listening audience. So I hope you enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Cybersecurity Luminaries, History and Heroes, a series aimed to highlight the profession's humble beginnings and the men and women who paved the road for all of us. This series is brought to you by Candy Alexander and Cailin Sullivan, your co-hosts from the Cybersecurity Refined and Feral podcast.
They say expectations are just ceilings waiting to be broken. But when you're tasked with protecting the digital sovereignty of an entire nation, those ceilings can feel like reinforced concrete.
Today we're talking to someone who didn't just break the ceiling, she redesigned the whole building. From the halls of the central bank to the helm of the National Computer Incident Response Team of the Bahamas, our guest is living definition of limitless.
Hello, everyone. I'm Candy Alexander, your host for Cybersecurity Refined and Feral.
And I'm Cailin, the co-host of Cybersecurity Refined and Feral.
Sametria, welcome to the show. You've spent a significant part of your career at the Central Bank of the Bahamas, and that's where we had met many years ago. Moving from the world of finance to becoming the director of the National Computer Incident Response Team is a massive pivot. When you took that leap, did you feel the weight of the national expectation, or were you just too busy focusing on the mission? No, not a light task by any means.
Hello. Thank you for having me on your show. When I took that leap, to be very honest, I didn't think about the gravity of the role. I had aspiration while I was at the central bank. I always wanted to do something national. I knew that I wanted to work in a way to impact my country directly. And so I applied for the job with an appreciation that I would be working at a national level, but not fully understanding what this role would entail. And I'll be honest with you, this role continues to evolve every day. So I make a joke with my team and I say that while we are the National CERT, we certainly are CERT Plus, because we do way more than what was originally designed in the role itself and also the agency itself. So I didn't quite appreciate what this would look like at the beginning, simply because I had not been in a role that was so grand. However, this role is the role that keeps on giving. It constantly surprises me with all the things that I'm doing and all the things that I'm learning.
So a lot of people think that they need a perfectly linear path to get to the top. You've shown that determination is more important than like a standard trajectory. Were there any moments where someone either directly told you or simply implied that this role of the CRT, the CERT, was out of reach? And if so, how did you flip the script on them?
I didn't get that. I didn't get someone saying that the CERT role wasn't a role that I can do. However, though, while I was at the central bank, I always felt that I was so deep in the work of building this team that sometimes seeing myself in a higher and an executive role was harder for me. It felt like this was something that I would not have been able to accomplish. However, I don't think that was my destiny. I honestly believe that the work that I did at the central bank was the work that I needed to do in that time. And it was good work. It really prepared me, it stretched me. I started my career in Houston, Texas, working as a systems analyst for oil and gas corporation. And when I decided to move home to the Bahamas, I prayed about it. I asked about, and I said, like, I wanted a job that will stretch me and challenge me and I would really be impactful. And boy, did that job deliver. It really did. I don't think that I could be sitting in this chair today as an effective director of the CERT had I not did the work that I've done at the central bank. So while there were challenges and lots of them, because that happens when you're building something new and you're building it from scratch. I think one, I had some internal barriers that I needed to get over on my own, and thinking that I belong in this space and that I can deliver at such a high level. And then certainly when I was considering applying for this job, I went through that a little bit again because it was COVID time and everybody around COVID time, we were a little weird. And I thought, I don't know if this is the right move to be doing at this time, because I took
Mm.
this job as a consultant at the time, and it was a 1 year consultancy. And so I took a leap of faith where I had my cushy, secure central bank job, my good job to say the least, and take this leap to decide that I would be a consultant and work to build the CERT. So I've said before that most times since I've moved back home, both jobs that I've had have been jobs that I've had to build the role that I'm performing in. And that in itself, it's its own type of victory, as well it does it that it comes with its own sets of challenges.
Absolutely. So, um, I've often, pondered that is cybersecurity skills and the desire to surpass, right? Because that's expectations. That's what we're talking about here. Is that certain people are driven to um, just do what they put their mind to. I often say when people ask me, why did you do X, Y, and Z? And it's like my response is because my mother always told me I could do anything I wanted. And I know you have that same mentality, and it's almost challenging when somebody says, "Oh, you can't do that." And we're of the nature, don't tell me what I can't do. I think if you agree with me that you're kind of born with it, because in our conversations that we had and working together, you had a really interesting childhood. Talk about, your family, your mother was instrumental to you, how I was like almost appalled, sent you out of country and you didn't speak the language. And so you were always faced with these challenges, Samitra. And you not only accepted that challenge, but you embraced them and flourished with them. So, can you talk about what those challenges are? Because that's foundational to who you are.
Yes, very much so. I had a rock star of a mother, and rightfully so. So, in order to provide context to why my mother raised me the way she did, my father died when she was 2 months pregnant with me, and I'm the last. I'm also 10th of 10. So she was pregnant with her 10th child, having nine other children. But she had had a full life with a really good family and a good husband. I mean, now she's faced in this new circumstances. So she was raising me. I believe that she paid special attention to both myself and my sister ahead of me to build us tough. I honestly feel that she did that. So there are some key things that I say that were very instrumental to who I am and how I engage with people today. One is I've always seen her work. I've never seen her sleep in. And it's controversial. One can say, whatever you say about that, but she was always doing something. She always showed up, and she understood the the power and the purpose and just doing good work. So there
Right.
wasn't always big rewards behind the work. And she would say that you don't need to have this big fanfare to show up and do good work and deliver more than you're asked for. So that was a key thing. But one other thing that was important, and I'm going to get to the Mexico story in a bit, that when I was young, she would send me out amount. She was a serial entrepreneur, so she had a variety of different small businesses that she engaged in. And one of them is that she would sell fruits. And so she would send me out as a child to go out in the neighborhood and sell fruits. And I can say I was probably about maybe 6 or 7, about that. Could have been 8, but I think I'm remembering that I was pretty young. And I remember when she kind of gave me my script and she told me, when you go out there, you say, good afternoon, I'm here to sell, just say bananas, because I remember selling quite a bit of bananas. And the rule that we had was she gave me my float and she said, the money we make, we split. You give me back the float that I gave you, and whatever we made the profit, then of course that you would get to split that. But as I did that over the years, and I did that for some time, I had autonomy. I would offer when I wanted to be done selling and wanted to play with my friends. I would offer people discounts. I would be like, you know what? If you buy 2 hands of banana, I'll give you 2 for free. And people would be shocked that I was out there offering discounts. And my mother never questioned or overly, assessed if I made this amount or not, because that wasn't the purpose. It was really to understand work, and also was to get me out there to be able to engage with people, and it did its job, because I don't think there's anyone that I cannot talk to. And I also find that experience is so instrumental in the way I engage with people today. Like, I have an appreciation for that, what my space is.
Right. Right.
Now, to the point that you made about going to Mexico. When I was 17, my sister and I, we went to Mexico to school. So I would have graduated at 16. And it's a weird time for you to want to send your child off to school. But at 17, my sister and I, the one that's right before me, my parents, my mom, and my another sister, sent us to Mexico, and we didn't speak Spanish. And there was no concern around the fact that we didn't speak Spanish, because the goal was to go and speak Spanish. I remember them giving us the rules, and they were like, here's the deal. You are not to fail a single class. So I started my tertiary education in Mexico, and my degree in systems engineering in an all Spanish speaking college.
Yeah. Talk
Incredible.
about surpassing expectations.
Yes. But that happens when you set proper expectations for children. I think it's important to set expectation higher than people can imagine. And that follows with me. I don't like a job that I know how to do everything in. I like a job where I'm learning and being stretched and being challenged in the job. If I know everything in the job, that's my signal that it's time for me to find a new job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question for you. For like the younger people, entry level that are coming in, we often see big titles, and it feels like a fortress that we can't. It's hard to break into. How do we even get there? So for the young people in the Bahamas, entry level, cyber all over the world, um, what is the first thing that they need to realize about their own potential?
I think everybody has their personal gifts. And I think people need to start there, uh, because we are all built to do something. We have our own purpose. And about making sure that we have people into the space of cybersecurity, especially when you're looking at this industry. And it can be really tricky because we have all of these rules on who's technical, who isn't technical, how you should enter, how many certifications you should have. There's no one path to getting into the role. And so the reason I brought up everyone having their own talents and goals and kind of potential to do work is that use what you have. I know people talk a lot about purpose and finding purpose along those lines, but put purpose aside for a little bit and just talk about your talent. Use what you have. If you're a good communicator, then enter the space as a good communicator. And there's work to be done there in cybersecurity communication as well as cybersecurity awareness. I mean, enter into the lane where you suit best and then work your way up lateral and wherever you want to go in this field. So I one thing is to don't approach cybersecurity as some scary industry to enter where you have to be a pen tester. And I get I say tester because lots of times when I speak to young people and I say, what do you want to do? Especially related to cybersecurity, they say, I want to be a pen tester. And no fault to the pen testers out there. Kudos to you. We need you. But we all can't be pen testers. We have to be strategists. We have to be GRC professionals. We have to be communicators. We have to be public awareness professionals. Like there's so much work to be done that there's a lane for everyone who has the talent and the desire to enter this industry.
Yeah, I think the desire to is one of the things that will really make or break somebody. That and also just being curious in general, always learning. But determination and resilience is definitely a huge part of it. Those two things combined.
I want to piggyback on something that the industry does that I hope change, because we as an industry we have these full barriers that we tend to put up, and I would like us to break those down so that people will see entering cybersecurity as an opportunity to be successful wherever you're starting without thinking that you need to come into the role overly highly skilled. I imagine that you will start at entry level and you will build your skill level and then you will be skilled to the point. So we have to create those spaces where we have entry level jobs designed to train cybersecurity professionals with the goal of making sure we have people in the pipeline and that we can keep them there without people feeling inadequate, or not feeling as if they can do the work simply because they may not be as technical or whatever those areas may be. But the industry needs to shape our language and our advertisement around entering cybersecurity.
Well, I completely agree with that. However, there's a couple of years difference between you and I and Cailin, and we've all had our chats and our moments of like, I'm losing my mind. Help me. And so I think, when we look at it from a scholastical perspective and a technical perspective, there's a syllabus, there's, courseware, mapping, that's all fine and well. But I think from a cyber security professional perspective, one of our challenges is in the interpersonal personal relationships within the organizations, within your even your team, your managers. And what really frustrates me is the fact that the three of us, and we're like three different generations amongst the three of us, have all gone through the same lessons. I mean, Sametria, you and I have talked, and I have had these conversations with Cailin. And isn't it a shame that we still have to go through those lessons and those challenges? And so, therefore, I think the hardest part of our job in cyber is people. And so, I want to explore a moment the value of having a coach, a mentor, whatever you want to call that. So, what are your thoughts in that regard?
I think that I'm always seeking out guidance. I'm always seeking out mentorship. And I encourage others to do the same simply because you don't always know what you don't know. So you don't know what you don't know. And so
Right.
therefore, benefiting from a second eye or someone who has more experience to provide some different perspective is
Yeah.
always healthy. And however, though, to your point on making sure that the people aspect doesn't create barriers when we are already in the jobs, because like we said, we've had lots of conversations about what those challenges has been.
Mhm.
I find that a lot of that has to do with lack of awareness. And by awareness, let me tell you what I mean,
Yeah.
not hygiene awareness. I think a lot of it has to do with situational awareness. When you enter a space, uh, um, sometimes you have these challenge where leadership may not have an appreciation for what the role is or what are the threats that they're facing and why you're here and how critical that role would be. So then you will find yourself having issues with budget and resources and being able to push a program that's really critical to the organization. So there's that. Then there's also what constantly tends to come up is this positioning between information security slash cybersecurity and IT or other GRC functions. And we haven't worked that out because every organization is different. And we need to look at that and see which one of these roles, these structure fits best for the organization. We've had cases where you and I, Candy, have strongly went against having cybersecurity or information security report to IT. And that works in some instances. But then I've also seen where, while I don't necessarily agree with this is my personal opinion, information security reporting up to IT, I think it gets clouded in the
Mhm.
availability of systems and the need to have that done more so than making sure that you have a governance structure around a cybersecurity program, right?
Mhm.
So um, the people aspect of it, I find, comes about because there's a lack of appreciation for the value of the role. And that lack of appreciation is tied to lack of situational awareness.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think fundamentally it is situational awareness on all parts and parties,
Yes.
right? So it's the lack of situational awareness from a cyber leader, such as yourself, in both of your very prestigious roles in the Bahamas, that situational awareness with not just leadership of the organization and what your importance and role is, but vice versa, your understanding what are their challenges. Because a lot of times I feel that leadership doesn't feel the need to include cybersecurity in that strategic business discussion.
Yes.
So, how can we support their strategic goals if we have no idea what they are? And so when they come back to us and say, well, kind of like, we'll tell you what you need to know, that doesn't really work, does it?
It doesn't work. I think, but I think that position is, I'm optimistic. I think it's changing. I think um, information security is becoming more of a business role within an organization. People are
Mhm.
seeing it as critical, uh, and rightfully so, because we have all of this sophistication in IT modernization and digital transformation happening across the world. And so with that creates more introduction to cyber risk, right? And so businesses are starting to pay attention because they're being affected more. And with that, they're having to say, okay, well, I saw ABC company down the street had a major incident. I don't want to be impacted this way, and I don't want to have those same risks. And so let's see what we can do over here. We're also seeing at national levels where countries are paying more attention to So, with the introduction of a national cybersecurity agent like the CERT, it's evident that a country that may not have had this type of agency before is now paying attention and saying we need to include this. This needs to be a part of our national agenda, which of course is a part of our national security. So I think we are evolving as an industry, and my hope with that evolution comes just the appreciation for all parties involved, like you said, where leadership and decision makers, where they stand, what they need, and also what we need to provide them in order for them to make informed decisions. So we tend to lean on, oh, managers and leaders and decision makers, they don't know what we're going through, or they're giving us a hard time. But there's also the part to play if we sit down and in the proverbial hoodie and we're hands on keyboard, then we can't reach them. So we have to talk about risk, specifically in this case, cyber risk at all level, up, down, and across. And that will change this whole notion of like what gets accepted, what gets funded, what is
Yeah.
appreciated, what is elevated within an organization.
So when you were at the Central Bank of the Bahamas, of course, there are risks. And therefore, it was absolutely critical for you to get leadership at the bank to understand those risks in order to support you, as well as to mitigate those risks or to make a risk decision, as well as get the buy-in from the IT side of the house to implement those things. Um, what are some of the little tips and tricks that you learned in that role to get them to pay attention to the risk? I mean, we're talking about the financial economic system of the country of the Bahamas. So that's kind of important. So, what was your magic Sametria fairy dust that you pinged with your little wand and accomplished that?
I I don't think I had any special fairy dust, but I will say that I use the same thing here. So let's go with that. I think strong relationship building is important, and you need to build them at all levels. You have to be able to influence up, and that's important. I understood very early on in that role that I had a strategic role and that I was building a program, and therefore I needed the air of leadership in order to champion said program. So most of the conversations that I would have with my leadership was around understanding why I wanted them to present their position very openly to the organization. So I would always ask at the time, both governors, Governor, can you write a letter ahead of this meeting that I want to be mandatory so that they know?
I just want to
Sorry.
interrupt one moment because not everybody understands what a governor is. And so for the Bahamian uh, culture, the governor is equal to the president of the organization or a CEO. Just had to set that because here in the States, it's a little bit different.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Yes, thank you for that. I picked that up. So I had this relationship, and so this what this did was it allowed me to present to them real world risks that was impacting, well, let's call them threats, that was impacting the central bank. And so there was relationship building. There's also being competent, showing up prepared, and do what you say you're going to do plus. I didn't understand this at the time, but really what I was doing was building trust with my constituents. I was making sure that they can trust me, and also I cared about the work. There was no doubt that I was passionate about the work as I am now. And so what that did was it allowed me to build a level of, I guess, intellectual currency with my leadership so that I was relied upon. I could give advice to leadership in the way that's necessary to be effective in the role. So what I do now is the same thing. I build relationships and I pay attention to that because it's people who you really want to impact in order to make things happen. I show up. I'm consistent. I am competent in the work. Not to suggest that I know everything. What I'm saying is do the work that you set out to do and deliver. And that builds trust. And when you're building this trust, you do it over and over again. People tend to look at you and say, okay, Sametria knows what she's doing. We can listen to her. Okay, all right. Well, she says that we need this little budget. We can give that to her. And I've watched my budget. I had this conversation today, actually. And I'm saying when I started, I had a budget of $3,000. And I watched my budget grew like multiple folds from $3,000 by the time I was leaving that role, simply because one, I showed up, I did the work, I built the relationship, and I can't leave without saying, you have to document. I'm coming in and telling your leadership some great idea without having it properly documented so that they can approve it and see it and understand it and it's supported by evidence. It's one of the biggest things that you can do outside of all the other things that I mentioned. Talking is great. Go ahead, talk it up. But after all that conversation is done, put pen to paper and make sure that you are giving them something tangible that they can review and that can be implemented.
Good points. So, of course, I'm going to be like ridiculous in saying this. Of course, the financial institution of the Central Bank of the Bahamas is going to understand to some degree why cybersecurity is important. Of course, they're going to. I don't know any financial institution in the world that does not understand risk, right? I mean, finance is all about risk, right? It's the premises. Um,
That's
so now, now that you got that under your belt, then you go and you take on the whole darn country of the Bahamas. Like, seriously, Sametria, how the heck do you convince the country of the Bahamas that A, cybersecurity is important, and B, hey, I got this alert I'm sending out to y'all, and you got to pay attention because it's going to come, it's going to bite you. So, where do you start with that conversation? How the heck do you go from like financial risk conversations? I mean, they're like insurance companies. We understand risk to the country of the Bahamas. Seriously.
I'll start by saying that I almost didn't apply for this job. I almost didn't. I told you that I had my cushy job at the central bank, which I enjoyed, and I almost didn't apply for the job, but I'm so happy I did. So the day of the deadline to submit my application, I had already said, oh, I don't know. This is a 1 year contract. I don't know if this is the right thing I should do, even though deep down in my gut, I felt like this was the move. And I had a colleague, a professional colleague in the industry. She had reached out to me and said, hey, Samitra, I wanted you to speak on my podcast. And I was on leave. And I said to her, I am coming off a leave. I'm actually am not available. Maybe in a couple of weeks we can circle back. And her response was something along the lines of, okay, sure, no problem. I can't think of anybody else that I want to do this podcast with. And it was a moment like, oh, okay. And maybe, I don't know, maybe an hour or so later, I had another call from another professional colleague who was asking me to meet on some initiative that he wanted to implement. And I said the same speech. I'm like, I'm just coming up leave and I'm not really available to engage with you in this way at this time. And he was like, oh, take your time. Could be good. I'll wait for you. And I was like, really? And in that moment, I said, why aren't you applying for this job? Because you have nothing to lose.
Right.
And people, they respect you enough. So why not? Right? So I did apply and we're here now today. I wish I could say that. So let me finish this thought that when I approached the job, I looked at it like, oh, this the whole big country. I do not do that. Simply because it would be intimidating to do. I got the job, and I understood, just like I did when I started at the central bank, that this job would be bigger than my job description said. And so once I got that under my belt, and I appreciated that. Something also to note that happened in this job is that my mother died 1 week into me having this job. And from what we've shared, my mother was my rider. So I was in the job thinking, here again, you need to leave this job because you're grieving. In no way you should stay here and do this work. And all the time I was thinking this, I can hear my mother's voice saying, no, you can't leave your job because I died. You got to go work, right? So I don't, back to what I was saying, I don't approach the work as one big work. I also don't approach it from the perspective as if it is mine to do on my own. Here's what I understand. I cannot do this work alone. And it requires partnership and relationships, and it requires trust. And the first things that I've always done when I started any both of these jobs is I go and find my tribe. There are people who are doing this work and who would have been doing the work before me and who understand a little bit more than me just entering the space. So that was one of the first things I did. I went and said, okay, who's in my region is doing this work? And I was lucky, and I'm going to bring him up. His name is Angus Smith. He was the CERT director for Trinidad and Tobago. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But he started out as my first friend and mentor in this space. We weren't talking specifically about cybersecurity because this job, while it's about cybersecurity, it isn't about cybersecurity. We were talking about how to move a project from zero to something. And that those were the conversations we had. He was saying, listen, you're coming from somewhere else. I need you to manage your expectations. Things are not going to move as fast as you think. The other thing I did was I leaned into my international community. I recognized that the Bahamas needed to be a member of FIRST. FIRST is the form for incident response and security teams. And so very early on, I made sure that we were a part of that group of people, as well as reaching out to other international coordination organizations like Organization of American States. So I didn't approach this work where I'm like, okay, I can do this work alone. And building those relationships help keep coming. So I keep, even to this day. So I have relationship with SEI who helped us in some way. I have relationship with ITU who has helped. And one, I've had the help, but it also made me expand the role. It made me expand the scope of what I thought I would deliver to what I am delivering now. That is grander and better and focused towards improving resilience in the country. So that's how I take it, one step at a time.
Yes, one bite of the elephant at a time.
That's
I
it.
think that is definitely a sane way to go about doing these things, because otherwise, I mean, you're 100% right when you said that it would be overwhelming to think about it from a holistic standpoint. But so now that the CR, the CERT,
Yes.
I keep saying CRT, is up and running, where are you going from here?
So that's a great question. So the CERT BS, by the way, which by the way, I think that acronym is the best acronym in the world. It keeps giving me material to make jokes on the fact that our domain name is BS. And so we'll talk about it another day. I won't make jokes today, but just by saying it, it's funny. So this, because the CERT is, we're currently establishing. So we have been offering services for the last 2 years. We still have a lot of work to do. We also have key projects that we are currently working on to shift the needle, especially from the perspective of building cyber resilience. I mentioned that key goal of mine is to build national cybersecurity capacity within the country. And that's just not a one project thing that requires a series of key objectives that will get us to this place. We are also the authority for cybersecurity in the country with responsibility of developing and implementing the national cybersecurity strategy, which is the first of its kind. And so that work is continuous. It's also exciting work. I have a new team of really exciting professionals who want to learn and grow. And so right now we're in this space where we're still building, and that is exciting. Whenever someone joins the team, I make sure to set expectations. Like, we don't have that yet, but thank you for asking. Go ahead and go do that good thing that you just asked me if we have, right? Um, so what's next for us is moving from just a CERT, this is my hope, to a national cybersecurity agency where the CERT is a part of the overarching agency. It's also making sure that we have key critical legal instruments that will support the CERT's authority to do its job, but also that will support the persecution of cybercrime. Like I mentioned before, I have this personal goal of mine to build national capacity. We need education at all levels, from policymakers right down to pre-K, and making sure that we have those capacity building mechanisms in place for people not only to enter in this space as a career, but just be able to understand, have an appreciation for their risk, and then know how to respond to them. And then I have other goals around how do we protect critical infrastructure. All of these are key elements of the strategy. This strategy is a baby of mine too. We develop it with to help with ITU. And my goal is to see that be implemented and be effective, grow in this way. So what keeps me in this role now, what motivates me to be here is because I want to be a part of a country where cybersecurity is a part of the national conversation. I want to be a part of a country where we are protecting our citizens, especially from a digital security perspective. And I'm happy to be in this space to do this work for my country and where I can see immediate impact to the work I do.
Wow. And so, you kill me. You always kill me because, just like 5 minutes ago, you're like, oh, yeah, you just got to look at, like, you got to start the foundation. Now we're talking about, like, building out a whole agency and love it. Seriously, bless you. It is so refreshing because I've known you for, I mean, I think we talked, at least 15 years? And to see you,
I think it's more than that.
well,
Maybe 15, but maybe more. Yeah.
let me stretch my skin a little so the wrinkles aren't showing. But to see you grow and flourish from that CISO at the Central Bank of the Bahamas to now, you were very tactical and very hands-on, struggling to grow that program and going through, as I mentioned, the challenges that we all are going through, to sit here and now hear you speak as a true visionary for the country of the Bahamas. You never cease to amaze me, and
Thank you.
you are one of the most brightest stars of your country. And I hope they're as proud of you as I am, Sametria. I mean that so sincerely, so
Thank
sincere.
you so much for saying that. I always ask them to trust me. So every time I speak to my constituents and I'm making a call for action, I say, trust me, trust me. So I hope that, they hear you and they say, she's a bright star, trust her.
Well, so it's kind of like the family, right? I
Hmm.
mean, one of 10, I'm sure you understand this. It's like your brothers and sisters can beat on you all day long, but Lord help anybody who tries to come over and push you out of the way. That's what you're experiencing is that they're not seeing it because you're their sister, you're the family. So, but I recognize you as the rising star that you are. So, Sametria, thank you so much for showing you that there only real limits that we have are the ones that we put before us ourselves. There are no limits. Your work with the National CERT isn't just protecting data, it's protecting the future of the Bahamas. So again, thank you.
Thank you so very much for having me, ladies. I appreciate this platform. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about myself and also the work that we're doing here in the Bahamas. I'm proud of this work. I am proud to be on your podcast speaking to you because of the long relationship we've had. Candy and I have been mentor and mentee. We didn't mention this as a part of this conversation, but I think it's worth mentioning that we've had a relationship that has spanned more than just the professional relationship that we've had. We've shared challenges that's mutual. We've also had an opportunity to work closely together. So I appreciate being here with you ladies talking about my journey and the work that I've done. So invite me again next time. Let me know how I may be able to help in any way on your platform. But I appreciate the opportunity today.
Sounds wonderful.
Thank you so much, Sametria. You're definitely somebody that I have been looking up to for a while too, and I love the opportunity that I have to ask you questions and get your take on things as well as Candy.
I appreciate it.
So if everybody, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to subscribe and share. And just always remember you are more capable of what you think you are.
And with that, we'll go ahead and end with our usual outgoing message of keep your strategy refined.
And your spirit, Pharaoh.
See you next time.